So, as we start off this conversation here today, one of the things that we want to mention is that the vibration of this particular series, as you may have noticed already, is not exuberant. It's very, very deep. And so you might imagine being in a lake and finding a current of water as you're swimming around that runs very deep but strong and clear. It's not obvious, but it's there, and it's there powerfully. And that is the vibration of freedom. While it is interesting, isn't it, to sort of begin off this conversation on a day when in some places this day is celebrated with fireworks and parades and picnics of all sorts. The way we are going to begin is not through the issuance of fireworks or handing out of watermelons and sandwiches, but rather just the deep and abiding truth that freedom is the basis of your reality, and it is why you came here. Now, it might seem like a very strange thing from us to say, as our non-physical selves will do, that freedom is somehow or another the reason you came into physical reality, because it seems to be a place where there are a lot of constraints. And we've talked in many, many different ways at many different times about how these constraints are helpful and useful. But the real freedom in the constraints lies in the fact that you establish them. You have agreed to them. You are binding yourself to them for reasons that are very useful for you. Some of those reasons may no longer be applicable, but they have always been useful or helpful in some way. This is where we begin with the idea of true freedom, freedom that has nothing to do with circumstance or situation, freedom that applies equally to the person bound very tightly into their own beliefs or in physical circumstances, to the person who is the least constrained and the most flowing. This true freedom is a constant ringing bell that is pure and clear and never, ever, ever stops ringing. It is like a deep, deep current of cool and clear water that runs through everything, that is present in all things. And it could, in fact, be something you could say is the reason why atoms bind themselves together to create molecules. It's the freedom of the experience. It's the reason why you decide to join something. In other words, it's the reason why you go to the school or the church or the organization or the workplace, is for the freedom of it. And the freedom is found in your choice to do so. Now, this isn't a political statement, although you could apply it to politics if you wanted to. What we're saying here is that everything that you do is based upon your decision. You're doing it because you want to do it, and freedom is the basis of all of this reality. Remember, all of this reality is your construct. In the last several weeks, we've been talking about all sorts of delicious subjects, including the idea of your alignment with yourself, of what happens when it feels better, and on into the deliciousness of when it feels better, that activates the vibration of the contrast of reasonableness. Now, let's don't feel too good. And this week, we move into the next piece of this part of our conversation, where we're talking about, now that you understand the reasonableness of things, now that you understand why that happens and what it's for, and how there's a seesaw of reasonable, unreasonable, that you can get off at any time. Now you can begin to listen, now that a lot of the clutter is no longer sitting around you. You can begin to listen for the clear clarion bell of freedom. It's always present. It's in everything. And in fact, it is the reason why you do anything and everything. Freedom is the basis of your reality. We'll say this again and again and again and again. It is the reason why you agree to what you agree to. It is the reason why you decide what you decide for. It is the reason why you turn right instead of left. Now, like the dilemma of reasonable versus unreasonable, there's also the dilemma of freedom versus running amok. And they're not really versus, because in fact, running amok is not actually related to freedom at all. It's a false dichotomy of the highest order. It is the one that in your culture is used most powerfully to help you constrain each other. You do so through all sorts of means, some of which are spoken and some of which are unspoken. You produce movies and books and television shows and plays. You sing songs about what happens when you go too far, when you do too much, when you show up in a way that is wrong. That's how you guard against running amok. The true bell of freedom has nothing to do with any of these things. It is what makes all of them possible. But it has nothing to do with these manifestations, other than gives them the space to exist. The person who is very invested in trying to keep things under control is going to see the idea of freedom as being almost a threat. But true freedom doesn't threaten anything. It liberates everything. It may, you could say in a sort of ironic way or in a philosophical way, it threatens the existence of the unwanted. And if you have become very married to the unwanted, you're going to see this very quickly and very soon. But the truth is indeed that the freedom that you experience at any given moment is neither given nor withheld. It is neither granted nor denied. It just simply is. This is what true freedom means. It has nothing to do with circumstances or situations, but it can leverage any situation or circumstance in the most powerful ways that you can imagine, and in powerful ways that you simply can't imagine, because you have not been there yet. If you will remember that freedom is your birthright, freedom is the basis of your reality, and this reality is your creation, then the bonds that bind you to circumstance and situation begin to loosen. Because you cannot hold yourself in a place of such restriction in the light of the idea of true freedom, a clarion call ringing in every place, at every time, in every way. One that is so powerful and present, it has to be ignored. So when we talk about it as a deep flowing stream, we don't mean that it's hard to find. What we mean is it's obvious once you begin to look for it, once you become a match to it. But it's not going to jump out and try to grab you, because that's not freedom. Freedom will not direct you. It will not tell you. It will not impel you or compel you. It will not try to get you to do anything at all, because these are your choices. This is your reality, and it's going to let you, so to speak, do what it is, whatever that may be, that you have decided to do. It does not judge you. It doesn't measure you. It doesn't discern you. It doesn't try to leverage you. It doesn't do anything other than simply let you be who you are indeed. And that's magic. That's magic. That's pure magic. It's a powerful magic. And our suggestion is that you recognize that freedom is everywhere. It's in everything. And it is indeed the basis of your reality. Now, again, this series of conversations this week, in this time, are not going to be exuberant. They're not going to be a marching band going down the street with firecrackers shooting off behind them, playing loud music that is stirring to the soul. It's more like a single drummer and a single bell ringer going down the street very quietly, but very present and very powerfully. You see, the explosion of gunpowder in a firework is loud and it's bright and it gets your attention. But as anyone knows who has lived nearby, eager children who've gotten their hands on fireworks and want to play with them day and night, after the first 20 or 30 explosions, it gets rather annoying. What is more lasting and more powerful is the signal of freedom, the ringing of this bell that is quiet but persistent. Not persistent for anything and not persistent against anything, but persistent in its presence. Neither pushing against nor championing nor doing anything like that. It doesn't try to get anything or anyone to do anything at all. It just simply exists. And in its existence, something amazing is happening. Now, you might have noticed by this point that all of the ways that we are describing true freedom equally apply to unconditional love, because that is what true freedom is. You could say true freedom is the expression of unconditional love. It's the way unconditional love, the manner by which, through which unconditional love manifests itself. It's quiet. It doesn't seek to do anything. It's more like raw power that you can draw upon for any purpose, for any reason, and do anything, including things that you don't like, things that are actively unpleasant and hostile, things that bind, constrict, and restrain. You're free to do all of this. That's the true nature of true freedom. So in these following days and through this series of conversations, one of the things that we invite you to notice is how the expression of freedom is much more quiet and much more deep than you probably would have ever thought, because it doesn't need loud clanging cymbals to announce its presence. Those are fun and wonderful indeed. And let the bands march, let the music be played, let the fireworks scream off into the night and produce loud explosions and beautiful, beautiful lights in the night sky. But remember that tomorrow, after the fireworks are gone and after the parades have all gone home, you're still with yourself, and a deep and abiding freedom will still be there, regardless of circumstance. No parade is necessary, although parades are wonderful. The freedom that you are is with you wherever you go, in the deepest, darkest winter, and in the most bright, shining light of a summer day. No matter where you are, no matter what is happening, the you that you are, in truth, indeed, is a being of freedom and nothing less.